Hey friend, welcome back to the Holy and Hungry segment of the Vision Driven Health podcast. Every other week, I do a more biblically focused episode that is meant to be a health devotional for you, where you can bring your hunger to the table and be filled with what God has for your health. I haven't talked about today's topic in a little bit. It's actually a huge driver for why I do this. I believe wholeheartedly that God cares deeply about our health and that it's not a secondary aspect of our walk with the Lord. When we aren't intentionally caring for our physical well-being, along with spiritual, emotional, and mental, we are metaphorically cutting off our right leg when it comes to having the full capacity to be and do all that God has called us to do. After listening today, I hope you find yourself inspired, motivated, and committed to partnering with God to create the necessary changes in your healthy habits. Do you find yourself struggling to consistently implement healthy habits? Do you lack energy, confidence, and motivation because of stress, overwhelm, and shame for having not gotten it together by now? Friend, there is hope and grace for your health. Hey, I'm Robin Ryan McDonald, host of the Vision Driven Health podcast. I'm a follower of Jesus, a wife, a mama of two, and a seminarian turned health coach. And I'm so excited that you're here. I found myself in my early 20s captive to cravings and convenience, 20 pounds heavier, super tired, with a face full of acne. I could not figure out how to maintain healthy habits until I discovered the power of aligning my choices with God's vision. 10 years and 2 kids later, by the grace of God, I'm still prioritizing my health and feeling amazing. If you are over quick fixes and are ready to feel good in your own skin, then grab a giant water bottle and let's dive on in. If a big reason you find yourself struggling to be consistent in your healthy habits is because you feel totally overwhelmed and spread way too thin, you're going to want to grab my Overcome the Overwhelm PDF. It's short, it's simple, and it provides 3 things to do each day that combined only take 15 minutes. The clients I have who've done those consistently report an increase in energy, weight loss, and often improved sleep as well. Grab this guide for free at visiondrivenhealth.com/resources. I'm only going to address 3 passages here, and I'm going to do my best to keep it concise. What I want to emphasize here today is that I'm not someone who's passionate about health trying to make up a biblical case for God's interest in our physical well-being. I'm someone who's passionate about health because it is biblically aligned to care specifically about our physical health. There is tons of evidence throughout Scripture that our strength and vitality is indeed important as followers of Jesus. In saying that, I also want to address the reality that we are in a broken and fallen world. There is disease and there are ailments that befall believers even when they are trying to put healthy practices in place. We can't control everything. We don't determine the outcomes. And at the same time, we do have power over our choices. We are quite capable of derailing what otherwise would be a healthy body through our choices. I know for me, growing up, I was introduced to the standard American diet, or if you make it an acronym, it's SAD, SAD. And it is sad. It is a diet comprised primarily of processed foods, whether from packages at home or packages at restaurants. At the time, though, I didn't know any different or any better. My mom didn't, my family didn't. We did not connect the dots between following Jesus, health, and honestly, the foods that we chose to eat. We didn't even know that what we were eating was unhealthy. And for most of us, we weren't given an alternative to this. This is the case for most Christians. And what's one of the best parts about following Jesus? Grace. So please keep this in mind as I go through these verses. I really want you to know that We serve a God who has created our bodies to be forgiving, who extends grace to not only cover the choices we've made in the past, especially when we didn't know that we were even doing anything detrimental to our body, but then additionally, he provides grace for us to create the change needed to experience healing and freedom and all the things required to be in a healthy state in your relationship with food, your body, etc. Okay, let's get into these passages. We have evidence from day 6 of creation that God cares about what we eat. Genesis 1, starting in verse 26 reads, "Then God said, 'Let us make humans in our image according to our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the wild animals on the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth.' So God created humans in his image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. God blessed them, and God said to them, 'Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves upon the earth.' God said, 'See, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree with seed in its fruit. You shall have them for food. And to every beast of the earth, and to every bird of the air, and to everything that creeps on the earth, everything that has breath of life, I have given every green plant for food.' And it was so. God saw everything he had made, and indeed it was very good." Genesis 1, 26 through 31. Among the very first instructions, not even just instructions, but among the very first things God even said to humanity was around what to eat. I mean, really, he could have said, "Hey, welcome to the world. I created for you. I'm God. Nice to meet you. I love you so much. We're going to have an amazing life together." But it was, "Hey, make babies, take care of this place. And oh, if you get hungry, all these plants are what you're supposed to eat." It was more of like a introduction or a orientation to Earth. He gave a calling and he gave a means to that calling, right? He said, "Hey, I've given you this earth. I've given you everything in it. You're meant to take care of it. And here's what you eat to sustain your life." We are physical as much as we are spiritual while we're on this side of heaven. And I'm not entirely sure how things work on the other side of heaven, but it might just be all spiritual. I have no idea. There are different interpretations to what scripture says about that. However, we need our bodies on this side to function, to live out what God has called us to do. And here's the thing. God walked with Adam and Eve in the garden and hung out with them. We don't have a biblical reference for this, but I can just imagine how delighted God was to show them the different things that he'd created for them. Can't you just picture God being like, "Here, try this, and it's the sweetest, juiciest peach ever," and Adam's eyes just like light up? God still wants to walk with you in your health. He wants to still show you what he's created and provided for you for food. He provides the grace we need to shift from the world's way of living and to step into his kingdom setup. I mean, honestly, we could just park it right here and know that God clearly cares about our physical well-being. But we're going to get into a few more verses. So next up, we're going to look at Exodus 15, verse 26, which I will give a caveat. Here in Genesis 1, God says that I've given every plant for food. It's possible that God intended for us to only eat plants. We do have in Genesis 9, after the flood, God declares both meat and plants the provided food for humanity. And that is what we see moving forward. And then when we look at in Leviticus and Exodus, we see that God has provided meat even for his people to eat. We see that Jesus most likely ate meat. So anyways, there's a lot of debate around that, but I do want to suggest that there is a grace and a provision both of plants and meat post-flood. Was it God's original design? Maybe not, but given how humanity made the decisions that they did, the way that sin entered the world, etc., perhaps this is what made the most sense now. God knows what he's doing. That's what he said he provided. So here we go. Exodus 15, verse 26. "If you listen carefully to the voice of the Lord, your God, and do what is right in his eyes, if you pay attention to his commandments and keep all his decrees, I will not bring on you any of the diseases I brought on the Egyptians, for I am the Lord who heals you." So if you haven't checked out episode 13, which is way back a while ago, we are now in episode 134, I'm fully aware, but I do actually talk about the food labels in Leviticus 11. I'm due to record that episode actually, and to kind of give it some fresh life, but I do highly recommend checking that out because it does give more insight into this passage. But God gave his people specific instructions on what to eat and what not to eat. Now, while there is a divine role that God plays in providing health, there is also a design he put in place that when we live according to his ways, our bodies are given what they need. In fact, archaeological finds have revealed that the Egyptians of that time suffered from a lot of different kinds of diseases. And when autopsies were performed on Egyptian mummies, they discovered evidence of cancer, arteriosclerosis, arthritis, tuberculosis, gallstones, bladder stones, parasitic diseases, and smallpox. So crazy, and also not crazy, that science confirms what God had already provided the Israelites thousands of years ago. Now you tell me, if physical well-being wasn't important to God, would he mention it? Our physical health isn't separate or distinct from our spiritual health. And this was actually the Hebrew understanding of our being. There wasn't a compartmentalized view that separates the mental, the spiritual, the emotional, the physical. It's a very Western view to see everything broken up the way most of us have been taught to view things, very compartmentalized. It's extremely important for us to begin to view the care and attention of our physical well-being as a vital and inextricable part of our spiritual journey. I have so many other Old Testament examples I want to give, but I do want to keep this concise. I will say, to give a little more insight on the Hebraic understanding of the body, they would say, like, you don't have a body, you are your body, you are your soul, you are your spirit, you are, like, that is intertwined into who you are. And the ways they would describe their feelings oftentimes had to do with there was a relationship to their physical body. The gut or the belly was considered the seat of emotions, and you know how we talk about, like, the heart is where you feel. They often would refer to the stomach or the gut, and in a variety of different ways they would kind of use those physical visuals to understand their personhood and the way that they thought and the way that they felt. But with that said, I have so many different Old Testament examples I want to give, but I'm trying to keep this concise. So let's go ahead and look at some New Testament insight into Jesus' value for physical well-beings. Matthew 4:23 begins, Jesus went through all Galilee, teaching in their synagogues and proclaiming the good news of the kingdom and curing every disease and every sickness among the people. So his fame spread throughout all Syria, and they brought to him all the sick, those who were afflicted with various diseases and pains, people possessed by demons or having epilepsy or afflicted with paralysis, and he cured them. And great crowds followed him from Galilee, the Decapolis, Jerusalem, Judea, and from beyond the Jordan. It's Matthew 4:23 through 25. Did you hear that? He cured every disease and every sickness among the people. They brought him all the sick and he cured them. That's specifically what it says. And now I know the population wasn't as high then as it is now, but I mean, this could have been hundreds, could have been thousands. I'm not entirely sure, but that would have taken some time to minister to each of those people, to heal them. Not to say that it takes long for them to be healed, but even if you just had like a moment encounter with each of these individuals, which I would imagine Jesus was loving on them and speaking to them. Again, this would have taken hours, maybe even days. And time was short for Jesus. His public ministry was only 3 years. So if physical health wasn't important, then the Son of God was wasting his time. And I'm pretty sure that you would agree with me, he wasn't wasting his time. And out of 3,779 verses in the 4 Gospels, 727 relate specifically to the healing of physical and mental illness and the resurrection of the dead. And this fact is going to really blow your mind. The focus given to physical healing in the Gospels is significantly greater than any other kind of experience recorded in the Gospels, including salvation. Okay? The miracle of physical healing was talked about more than salvation in the Gospels. You could argue that salvation is intertwined with all of that, But I'm gonna go out on a limb here and suggest that there is something valuable in God's eyes about our physical state. And friend, this is why I do what I do. I truly believe that if I'm following Jesus and I look at his life as documented in Scripture, I cannot deny the value of physical health. And my hope for you in this episode is that you feel encouraged and filled with hope. Because the God who created you has a specific design for your body that he can help you experience by his grace. And I do encourage you to check out episode 6. Again, super old episode. There's actually, if you just, can you search grace and vision-driven health? Maybe put those keywords in there. I've done quite a few episodes on grace. But if you need some motivation to prioritize your health this week, I hope you got it. And if you need an idea on where to start, here are 3 super, super simple things that you can do each day. Number 1, spend 5 minutes in prayer and include your health as part of that conversation. You can set a timer that might seem weird or maybe like too structured or maybe even not personal to set a timer in your conversation with God. But the reason why I suggest a timer is because sometimes if this is a new habit that you're exercising, you don't time it, maybe you could do a stopwatch instead so you can see how much time has gone by so it doesn't feel like there's a countdown. But I think sometimes we can start praying. And again, if this is new and you're not used to praying consistently to the Lord or having these conversations with him, you can be like, okay, I think I'm done. And look at the time. It's like, it's only been 2 minutes. So I do think, at least 5 minutes is valuable. So that's number 1, 5 minutes in prayer. Number 2, drink 100 ounces of water. And that, get a giant water bottle. You can put timers. I guess I'm all about the timers on your phone, or alarms on your phone to remind you when to drink. So that's number 2. Number 3, take a 10-minute walk every day. And hey, you know what? If you want to make this so simplified, you can pray to God while you take the 10-minute walk. And then it's literally, you're only taking 10 minutes and then the time that it takes to sip the water to implement these 3 super basic habits that can really impact your physical health and also your spiritual health. And actually, each of these habits are written out along with some tips to make healthy changes easier in that Overcome the Overwhelm PDF that I mentioned already. You can grab your copy at visiondrivenhealth.com/resources or visiondrivenhealth.com/overwhelmed. I'll have the link in the show notes as well. Friend, again, I hope this has been encouraging. If you have found value in it or you want to try those 3 habits in partnership with a friend of yours, feel free to share this episode. But be blessed, be encouraged, and take hold of God's grace to experience some transformation in your health. Until next time. Thank you so much for listening to the Vision Driven Health podcast today. I hope this episode inspired you, supported you, and blessed you in some way. If it did, it would mean the world if you would leave a 5-star written review on Apple Podcast and share this episode on your social media. The more reviews and shares this gets, the more people can be blessed and encouraged in creating a Jesus-centered, sustainable, healthy lifestyle. If you want to hang with me and other Jesus-loving ladies who are creating healthy habits that last, be sure to join my free Facebook group, the Made Well Mastermind. Use the link in the show notes to join. Be blessed with hope, joy, and health. I'll see you next week.